Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another MDRX video. Today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the Desertec MDRX and the accessories that we and others have found to get the best performance out of the rifle. Some of these are available on our website, others you'll have to find elsewhere, but we're going to talk specifically about sights, whether that's iron sights, magnified optics, red dots, whatever it might be. The bipods you can add to your MDR to get a more stable shooting position when you're shooting off of things or from the ground. We're going to talk about slings and how to rig them on the gun, where to put them, where not to put them, and so forth. Lights that you can add to the gun to get illumination for if you're shooting in low light or dark situations. The rails and M-LOK accessories that you can add or move around on the MDR handguard. We're also going to talk about the magazines, different magazines that we found that work good versus some magazines that we found that don't work perfectly. The ammunition you might use for your gun, as well as grips so you can get a better support grip and hold on your rifle when you're shooting it, as well as muzzle accoutrements, brakes, suppressors, and so forth, and where and when not to use them and how to use them. For starters, we're going to start out talking about sights. So sights are a very subjective subject. Some people like red dots, some people like magnified optics, some people like iron sights. I think it depends entirely on what kind of shooting you plan on doing with your rifle. Personally, I do a lot of medium and longer range shooting with my MDRX. I like the magnified optic, but obviously you can set up the rifle for whatever it is you're going to be doing. On my MDRX, I've got here a magnified optic on it that is a variable front focal plane scope. Choose an optic to your liking and price point. You can see I've also got mounted on here right now. I've got some 45-degree offset iron sights. Personally, I don't really use these, but some people do. Some people like having them, so you can see that's another option you can add on there. These are the Magpul version. You can see they fold down out of the way, pretty low profile. Again, that's the magnified. This is actually what they call an LPVO, low power magnified optic. That's what I like to use. You've also, on this MDRX, I've got set up here a Vortex red dot, which is also another great option. Typically these are used for more up close shooting. I've also got some other Magpul iron sights put onto this one that you can see. They're actually set up to co-witness, so the sights on the iron sights on the rifle line up with the same point of aim as the red dot. So in the event that you were to take this red dot off, you could still shoot using these iron sights with the same point of impact, essentially. So you can use both of those together or as an individual. As far as what kind of iron sights, that's again, this is a subjective thing. You can use whatever it is that best fits your budget and needs. There's many different red dots you can use. Obviously, find the one that best fits your needs. You can also use a 45-degree offset red dot that a lot of people use. You can mount these to the side of your standard optic. So I just swapped that out there. You can see, so now I've got the magnified optic on here as well. So this one uses in conjunction, it's got a red dot mounted on a 45, so you can use it. You can either use your magnified optic or you can switch to the side and use the red dot. Some people like that. Personally, I don't use it a lot, but it seems very handy for those who may want to use it. One thing you may notice on both of these guns is, as you're looking at them here, you can see I've got the back end of the scope basically lined up with this little ramp here on the back of the MDR. I've found that that's mostly for at least for people my size and with my length of neck here, that's generally the best place to mount them, so the back of the scope is right about flush with that mounting point, with that little ramp point there. That gives me the best eye relief. You may find it a little far forward or too far back depending on your length of pull, but make sure you adjust that so you've got a good clear vision through the scope, no shadows around the edges and so forth, so that you can get the best shooting done with your scope. Another thing you're going to want to do when you're mounting your magnified optic in this case is make sure that you have the scope mounted the appropriate height above the rifle. This may require different scope mounting options. You want to make sure that when you have your face rested solidly on the cheek piece here, you've got a good clear vision through the scope with no shadows or anything. Depending on the build of your face, that may require a higher or shorter scope mount. So keep that in mind when mounting your optic, that it is the appropriate height to keep your face in line with it. Another thing you may want to keep in mind when mounting your iron sights on your MDR, the handguards on the MDR, if you don't put them on in the same exact place every single time, you're going to have a problem with your iron sights. If you zero your iron sights with the handguard in one position and then take the handguard off and put it back in a different position, you're going to have a different point of impact. So keep that in mind when you're sighting in the rifle with iron sights, as well as anytime you take the handguard off or on, make sure that you put it back in the exact same position to ensure that your sights maintain that zero. We're going to talk a little bit about bipods. Some people are going to be shooting their MDR from supported positions, off the ground, off of benches and so forth. And for that, it's hard to beat a bipod for front support on the rifle. There's a million different options as far as bipods out there. I personally am a fan of the Harris and the Atlas. Those are probably the most popular models. This one I've got an Atlas mounted to. You can see it's got a swivel and adjustable legs and so forth, which is handy for when you're shooting off of uneven terrain or something like that. I like the Atlas for a good strong option. We also have here a Harris bipod, another popular option, more likely due to the price. The Harris is also adjustable for different terrain situations and so forth. These two different bipods are mounted in a different fashion. This one mounts to a swivel stud, just like most Harrises do. This is a mag pull accessory that attaches via M-lock to the handguard. That's one good way to go, especially if you're going to use a Harris. You can also use the ADM QD mounts that attach to the Harris bipod, which is also the same way that this Atlas is attached. You can remove the bipod just by folding over that little quick release lever. This here is a M-lock pick rail that you can get. It's also made by AccuShot, same people that make the Atlas bipod. So you can mount your bipod either way, whatever works for you. There's several other different kinds of bipods. There's below bore, such as these. There's also bipods that suspend the rifle from an over the bore position, or they mount actually onto the top here. So the rifle basically hangs from the bipod. Bipods are handy for when you're shooting any kind of accuracy shooting or distance shooting, things like that. Whatever bipod you use, make sure that you get a good mounting system. If you don't plan on taking it off very often, then the sling stud's not a bad way to go. If it's something you're going to be taking off and on, then perhaps a QD attachment is the way to go for you. Okay, next up we're going to talk about slings for the MDRX. Slings are really handy for when you're moving around, if you're hiking, hunting, whatever it may be. This here's a tab sling. We have this one available for sale on our website. I've got it attached by a mag pull flush cup type connection there, so you can quick release it very easy. Just push the button and the whole sling comes off. It's attached on the back to the MDR's standard cup in the back. Flush cups are a really nice way to attach slings to your rifle. They swivel around and they're easy to take on and off and if you need to. I like to carry my MDR over the shoulder like this. So I've got it slung on the front side here and on the back side here. It keeps the rifle tied up against you so you don't get it caught up on things while you're moving around. And it's very quick and easy to get up into the shooting position. That's one sling option. I like this one quite a bit. And again, you can just quick release it like that. Get the rifle off quick if you're in a hurry. Another option that I also frequently use is this mag pull sling here. I've got it attached the same way here on the back, but this time I've got it hooked to a mag pull loop. Sorry if this has turned into a Magpul commercial, but this one I've got hooked through a Magpul loop up here that's attached via M-lock to the handguard. You can also, if you're going to carry it in a traditional, a more traditional style, you can sling it over the shoulder like that. Next up, we're going to talk about lighting options for your rifle. You may have noticed here that I pulled a switcheroo on you and changed out the handguard in this rifle. So this one now has the longer handguard. We'll get more on handguards here in a minute, but just wanted to show you. So here's one option for lights. You've got a side mounted, I believe this is a Surefire. Yes, this is a Surefire light that mounts right here. I've got it on a 45 mount on the side of the M-lock handguard here. You can mount it up there. You've got a push button pad on the opposite side so you can turn the light off and on. That works great. It's behind the muzzle so that the lens doesn't get all fogged up with muzzle blast and powder burns and so forth. I think that's fairly important to keep it far enough away from the muzzle that it doesn't get too dirty. That's one option. Another one that we frequently use here is this Enforce light that we've got on this, that I've got mounted on this rifle. This one I've got mounted on the 90-degree position being suppressed. I don't have to worry about whether or not it's going to get blasted from the muzzle on there. You can switch this one back and forth from temporary to on, permanent off type thing. You've got a button on the back so you can light up your target that way. So there's some good options. Just make sure that when you have a light on here that it's a safe distance away from the muzzle so that it doesn't get damaged. Definitely follow the light manufacturer's instructions as far as that goes. While we're on the subject of mounting things on the side of the handguard here, I want to talk specifically about the rails and M-LOK portions of the MDRX handguard. So all the MDRXs are M-LOK compliant. They are designed to use all M-LOK accessories. So whether you're going to be using a pick rail section or perhaps the stud mount here for the bipod or whatever else it is, they will interface with the M-LOK cuts on the MDRX handguard. There's all different lengths of rails. You've got short rails, you've got long rails, you've got plastic ones, you've got aluminum ones. Whatever type you use, just make sure that you've got it centered properly in the grooves before you tighten it up. And then keep in mind, the handguard is plastic, it's not metal, so when you do snug up those M-LOK screws, make sure you don't over tighten them, and do make sure, look inside there and make sure that the nut on the M-LOK has turned all the way, 90 degrees off rail alignment here so that you get a good bite, so to speak. And don't over tighten them. You may run into a problem with that, breaking the plastic or something along those lines. These M-LOK cuts are perfect for mounting all kinds of accessories. Like you saw before, I've got my flush cut mount here for mounting my sling. You can put in grip panels. You can add finger catchers like this Magpul finger stop here so that you can keep your hand from sliding off the end of the rifle too close to the muzzle and so forth. There's all different kinds of things you can add to those. The pick rail along the top of the MDR is made for mounting all these same accessories that we've shown before. If you don't like having that serration on the top, you can use one of these plastic rail covers to kind of soften it so that you don't tear your hand up on it if that's the way you're going to hold it. Next up on our list is magazines. MDR is designed to use SR25 pattern magazines and AR-15 style magazines. That said, there are a few that occasionally don't give the best results. Your experience may vary. For the most part, most MDRX and MDRs will work just fine with standard AR-15, like USGI mags work fine. We ship them with P mags mainly because that's the ones we found the best results with. So P mags work spectacular. Almost every gen I've ever tried works flawless. Never had a problem with them. There are some people who've had a few issues with some of the Lancer magazines. Not everybody. Some do, some don't. Again, your experience may vary a little bit, but regardless of what you use, stick with what works. Whether it's 5.56 or 7.62 or 6.5 Creedmoor. I mean, this is a Duramag 20 round 308 mag. Works great for both 6.5 Creedmoor as well as 308. One thing I will notice, these 25 round P mags, 308 P mags, have given some people some issues with 6.5 Creedmoor or 308, so keep that in mind. If you are having some issues and you're using 25 round P mags, you may want to switch to just the standard 20. You may have better results with those. So let's talk about ammunition for a second. We'll talk about what you should use, what you shouldn't use, and what we found to be best performance. Most of the time that we test MDRs with, we're using the American Eagle, the XM80 for the 308, and the 5.56 version of the same. Any good quality factory ammunition is definitely something we'd recommend in using. There's lots of less expensive types of ammunition you can shoot in your MDR. Just make sure that you're using ammunition from a quality manufacturer. We do not recommend using reloads or steel cased ammo, though many people do use them without any problems. We don't recommend it for obvious reasons. Just make sure that when you're using it, that it is ammunition that fits the chamber. Use ammunitions that are ideal for those twist rates. There are plenty of good options of ammunition for the MDR and whatever caliber it is that you're shooting. Just make sure you use something that is reputable. If you have problems or hear about other people having problems with a certain type of ammunition, you may want to avoid using that. Okay, we spoke a little bit before about the M-LOK slots and how they are used for all these different accessories. Now we're going to talk about how you can use those for additional grip options. So as you can see here, I've got a Magpul down grip attached to the front of this MDR right here. This is a great little option if you like that down grip position, or I like to hold it like this myself. That's a great option you can use. There's a million different kinds of down grips. Some of them have bipods in them, some of them have pressure switches that you can add to them and so forth that'll go in conjunction with your lights. There's other kind of angle grips you can mount to the front, such as this, another option from Magpul here that you can put on the front to hold the rifle at an angle if that's more comfortable for you. There's lots of different options there. Again, it comes back to how you want to mount it and what feels right for you. And again, just make sure that when you put in your M-lock fasteners that the T-nut is attached properly in 90 degrees offset, and again, don't over tighten them. Last on our list of accessories is muzzle devices. There's a whole different assortment of muzzle devices you can add to your MDR. Some of them are suppressor mounts, such as this one I've got on this rifle. Among the many different muzzle brake options you have is the Desertec ratchet. This is the one that we make that comes with the rifle. The ratchet is designed to reduce recoil and maintain muzzle neutrality, so as the rifle recoils, it stays on target instead of dancing all over or rising, as you may find with a lot of different muzzle devices, or a lack of them. There's all kinds of different muzzle devices you can add to your rifle for different purposes, whether that is to mount a suppressor or just reduce recoil or reduce flash. There's all kinds of different things you can add to it. Just make sure that when you get a muzzle device, make sure you got the right thread pitch. That is half 28 for the 5.56 version of the MDR, and 5/8 24 for all the other calibers that we offer for the MDR. Make sure you get the right thread pitch so that it doesn't damage your threads when you're putting on, and when you do put on, be careful. Some devices will use a crush washer, others will not. Make sure you install those per the manufacturer's directions so you don't cause any problems or ruin any threads. Last thing in the world you want is some ruined muzzle threads, so keep that in mind. And also when you're mounting, particularly when you're mounting a suppressor mount, make sure that you have perfect alignment. Do not use crush washers underneath those. Make sure you have good straight alignment, otherwise you could have something like a baffle strike in your suppressor, which is worst case scenario. One thing we will want to mention when it comes to muzzle devices, you'll see here with this handguard, the compensator is quite a ways from the handguard, so it's not an issue. With the longer handguard, you'll recall it was also sticking out the end of it. Now, if you had a 16-inch barrel in this rifle, this is a 20-inch Creedmoor right now, but if you had a 16-inch barrel and installed this handguard on it, the muzzle is going to be down inside here, which is fine if you're going to put a suppressor or something else on it. But the last thing in the world you want is to have a muzzle brake or compensator that is down inside here. This is just plastic, and it will blow it apart, and you could have not only a damaged handguard, but you could have an injury there. So keep that in mind. Make sure that when you install your suppressor mount, that if it is the ratcheting type or any kind that requires a push button release or something like that, you may have an issue. If it's down inside here, you won't be able to reach it, and your suppressor could be stuck on there essentially because you can't get in there to get it off. So keep that in mind. If you're going to use that style of a suppressor mount, you may want to stick with the shorter handguard so that you'll have the ability to push that release and unlock your suppressor to remove it. Suppressors are a great muzzle device. They protect your hearing, they help increase accuracy a little bit sometimes, and if nothing else, it's just a lot more pleasant to shoot with. So I would definitely recommend getting a suppressor. If you're going to use this handguard with suppressor, I recommend a direct thread style, because that way you can thread it down in there, tighten it up, and you don't have to worry about any of those issues with the muzzle brake locking and those types of things. So direct thread I prefer if you're going to go down inside the handguard. If it's going to be outside the handguard, it doesn't really matter what kind you use. If you haven't already watched it, go ahead and watch our video on suppressing your MDRX. You can watch that video here. Alright folks, that about does it for today's video. Hopefully we gave you some great ideas on how to accessorize your MDR or MDRX. Let us know in the comments below if you have any specific questions about compatibility issues or specific accessories. But that's about it for us. Thanks for watching. Give us a like and a subscribe if you like this video, and we'll see you guys on the next one.